Yesterday, my sons shoveled. I'm not supposed to shovel anymore because of my heart. I used to pride myself on my ability to shovel. I had a weak mind, but I had a strong back. I was a snow-moving machine. I was a precipitation, thunderation, exclamation, personification. Under the snow, we discovered a treacherous sheet of ice. Unthawed, unimpressed by plastic shovels. We didn't have a jackhammer, so we just cried uncle, let it go, and tiptoed back inside because it is slick. And as we did that, I thought, is it really a winter wonderland or a minefield? What is Christmas to you? Is it a winter wonderland or is it a minefield? 2 days ago, I heard this. I heard a mother complaining that she was with her 12-year-old daughter, and all of a sudden the daughter has decided she wants to say something rude to the mother every time the mother says anything. And so on this day, the mother let her have it. Do you have any idea how hard I've been working for a month now to make your Christmas, like every Christmas, spectacular? This morning, I heard another mother, the woman who works at the bagel shop, say, we're just going to ignore Christmas. I don't have a tree. The kids are older. I don't have time. I have to work on Christmas Day anyway. Is it a winter wonderland or is it a minefield? So this morning I thought maybe we'll just get real about Christmas. Maybe we should go deep under the tree, under the snow, under the ice. And maybe we'll make a Christmas gift to each other this morning, the truth. So let's keep it simple. The first thing is Immanuel. Christmas means Immanuel, a name for Jesus, which means God is with us. And Darren sang, and Sean played for her, Still, still, still. There is a beautiful old poem, and it was written so long ago. It was a time when people didn't know they should claim authorship for poems, and so we have to call it anonymous. And it's an old poem, so old the English is more like German. And in it, it says, he came also stilla. Not just still, but stilla. He came also stilla. And you know what silent night is in German? Stille Nacht. Stille. Now, I don't have a children's sermon today. So Jack, I want to say something to you and Theo and Anna. First of all, I want to say to Jack, man, you got a twin. What a great thing. I've got a twin. It's the greatest thing in the world. So I want to acknowledge that. And Theo and Anna, I want to say you got a big sister. And she's not with us today. But that is a great Christmas gift. But here's what I want to say to you kids. So just pay attention right now. Pretend this is the children's sermon. I won't bother you the rest of the time. This idea of still, 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 and silent night means this. I know you don't believe it yet, but just file this away and remember it someday. Will you promise to remember it someday? All the parades, all the noise, all the shiny stuff, That's not the best stuff in life. The best stuff in life comes quietly. It comes still. It comes silently. The thing everyone seems so excited about, the big deal, that's never the real big deal. That's part of the message of Christmas, that the most incredible thing that ever happened in a nowhere place when no one was looking, to a poor woman. So just remember that. Be excited with the big stuff, but the best things in life are still. All right, now you can just goof off. So here's what I wanted to talk about this morning. The mystery of, this is a fancy phrase, so will you just bear with me, but we'll explain it. The mystery of God consciousness within the human form. Because if we're going to talk about Immanuel, God with us, what was it like for God to be inside humanity? That's what I want us to think about. I want us to think about the tension and dynamism and electricity of God being inside these limits. Immanuel. All over the world, we hear variations of crowds shouting, Allahu Akbar. That's Arabic. Do you know it? Allahu Akbar. God is great. And Christians have their own way of saying, God is great, and my God's better than yours, and my brand of religion is better than yours, and my interpretation of religion is better than yours. And the message of Christmas is not that God is great. The message of Christmas is God is small. The hero of the greatest story we ever heard came in the back door when no one was looking. In a manger. This is like a fairy tale where the princess leaves the palace to see what life is like for the peasants. This is a story about a king who traded heaven's royal chambers to accept no crib for a bed. So this morning, let's conduct an experiment in spiritual imagination. Ponder with me, what did Jesus see? After the Son of God awakened, after 40 weeks of womb nap, what did he see? The world Jesus entered had invisible lines all over it. There were lines between children and adults. It was a traditional culture Jesus was born into, and children should be seen but not heard. The world Jesus was born into had invisible lines all over it. There were lines between men and women in that culture. And if men and women passed each other in public, they weren't to make eye contact. That was considered forward. And the world Jesus entered had invisible lines all over it. There were lines between my family, my tribe, my people, my group, and then everyone else, the outsiders, and you did not mix. Those invisible lines in Jesus' world between Jew and Gentile, between righteous and sinner. And there were lines even within Judaism itself, between Pharisees and Sadducees and Samaritans. There were lines between Romans and Jews. There were lines between elder siblings who are supposed to get a certain amount of an inheritance and younger siblings who don't get as much. There were lines, invisible lines in Jesus' world between people who had status and who mattered, and when you had to pay attention to and you had to be careful about, and then the line around people who didn't matter, that you could safely ignore. Jesus' world had all these invisible lines in it. Does ours? But what did Jesus see when he looked? Did Jesus see these lines? Do you remember this? You don't always think about it. The first language any of us learn is eye contact. The first language you learn is when you look up into your mother's eyes and she looks down into yours. It's also the last language you'll forget. And when you visit someone whose consciousness is changing, you still count on that ability they have to look you in the eye, and you think, we're still speaking the same language. So the first thing Jesus saw was Mary's eyes. So it's no wonder then at 12 that when Jesus visited the temple, do you remember this story? And he was talking to the elders and he was asking them questions, that Jesus did not see the line that was supposed to separate children from adults and say, oh, you're supposed to be over here in the children's room. You're not supposed to talk to adults about important things. Because when Jesus looked at the grown-ups, he saw the child in them. And when Jesus looked at children, he could imagine the seed of the grown-up they would become. One time people said to Jesus, Jesus, don't you see the line around the Sabbath? The line between the Sabbath and all the other days? But Jesus said, I see sacred Sabbath every day of the week. One time they said to Jesus, why are you eating with tax collectors and sinners? Why don't you see the line between good people and bad people? And I don't think Jesus was being a smart aleck. Jesus said, I'm just trying to figure out who's the righteous one and who's the sinner. Because it's not so clear to me. One time they said to Jesus, if you were a prophet, you would know what sort of woman is touching you. Do you remember that story about the prostitute who came to Jesus and washed his feet and then dried his feet with her hair? Do you remember that story? And they said, don't you see the line around this kind of woman? What did Jesus see? He said, what kind of woman? I see a beautiful child of God. One day, the word came to Jesus. Your mother and your brothers are here. You need to stop what you're doing and talk to them. What did Jesus see? What did Jesus say? Jesus said, but I'm having trouble with this because everywhere I look, I see my mother. And in every one of these people, I see my brothers and sisters. I don't even recognize the line that says, I've got my own little group and then everybody else. I have this, Jesus saw everyone as family. Oh, the lines around who's big and who's small, who's important and who isn't, who counts and who doesn't, whose health and welfare should be protected and who is expendable. There are lines like that in our world, invisible lines. Who's the greatest and who's the least? That's what his disciples said. Jesus, tell us who gets inside the line of greatest and who's outside the line of least. What did Jesus see? Did he see those lines? Jesus, the Word made flesh, the Alpha and the Omega, said, the A shall be Z. Some of you were in school back in the unenlightened days when everything was done alphabetically. And if your name was Albright, you were always near the front. And if your name was Washington, you spent your whole life last in line. And Jesus says, the A shall be Z, the first shall be last. That's how things look to Jesus. In our world with its invisible lines, there are the donors, the patrons, the society page photographed honorary chair of the charitable foundation, and they bring their Scrooge McDuck sack of shekels to the temple treasury, and people take their picture and name things for them and thank you. And Jesus didn't see that. What he saw was this widow who dropped one coin into the plate. And he said, she's the greatest. Did Jesus see the Samaritan in the Samaritan woman? Did Jesus see the woman in the Samaritan woman? He just saw another child of God. Oh, this Christmas, could we imagine, could we envision the world that Jesus sees? Could we envision a world without all the invisible lines? Christ child, be thou our vision. Now, this never came up in the Gospels, and usually I try to be non-controversial, and I'm trying to be a nice guy, but deep down, I'm just a big blowhard. You know that. So I'm going to say it, because dang gone it, we're here. This never came up in the Gospels. But what do you think, and be honest with me, Jesus would have said if someone had asked him to celebrate the wedding of two women, or if someone had asked Jesus to celebrate the wedding of two men? We've drawn a line between those whose natural-born attraction and magnetic pull and hunger for intimacy is for boys, and those for whom it's for girls. We've got a line. We've got a big line. It's been there a long time. Would Jesus have seen that line? Would that line have mattered to him? He would have seen children of God. Oh Lord, this fourth Sunday of Advent, this solstice, this 3 shopping days before the after Christmas sales day, open our eyes that we may see. Now I've got one more thing to do. Is that okay? That was really, in a way, a sermon, but I got to say one more thing because of what Diane said in her prayer request. So what does Christmas mean to you? I don't know. I don't want to suggest it means the same thing for everyone. But let me offer 3 possibilities: some gold, frankincense, and myrrh. It could be that by the grace of God, you are in a good place right now. Isn't that incredible? Don't raise your hand. You might jinx yourself. But every once in a while, you can't explain it, you're actually okay. You're neither too high, you're neither too low. And Christmas then is your celebration of tradition and family and memory and hope and all those things they talk about in those Christmas songs. So if you are in a good place this morning, then God rest thee, merry gentlemen and ladies. It's so nice to be home for the holidays. Stay gold. But there's another gift of Christmas. Maybe that's not where you are right now. Now, this one is not so great a present. This is an uncomfortable gift that Christmas brings. Because, you know, in the story, Christmas frightened Herod. Because the idea that a child could bring good news, the idea that there's a new king, the idea that this time it's a prince of peace, that's not good news to the people in charge. They don't want change. They don't want new life. So it's possible that this Christmas, your present is to get you all shaken up because you're too comfortable. I hate to say it. You old dogs. But daggone it, you got to learn some new tricks. Did you think you could just find your little place, your little recliner, your little easy chair, your little wave and just stay surfing? Did you think the rules of life don't apply to you? Because you know that life has changed. And you know that every chapter of life has its own challenge. And you know that as soon as you arrive freshman year and you get to finally be a senior and you're coasting, guess what happens? You graduate and have to start at the bottom all over again. And so it could be that your gift at Christmas is the kind of good, kind of bad news that, guess what? Under that tree is something new, and it's time to learn some new tricks. But there's a final gift at Christmas, and it's the gift I'm desperate for, and that gift is good news. Christmas, does it remind you about how, wow, I used to be able to shovel this walk? For some of us, Christmas, there are more people missing than there are gathered. And all the noise and all the commercials and all the Christmas specials in all their shrill, superficial, shiny splendor make us feel more and more alone. It's like, oh, am I from another planet? Because everyone else is getting so excited and revved up, and I don't feel that way. Can I just settle in for a long winter's nap and wake up in a week? And just not have all this? You could be there at Christmas. Behold, I bring you this present, the one who in the beginning was the Word, the one who is the author of our faith, is writing the first word of a new story for you. The first word of a new story for you. The coming of Christ reminds us that there are new stories. There are things you'd never expected. There is change. The Son of God can come not in the way you were imagining, but in the smallest silent package. Now, this new story is going to require your active contribution and participation. It's kind of like Mary. You're going to have to bear this new story. It's going to be a labor of love. It may take 40 weeks, it may take 40 minutes, it may take 40 days. I hope it doesn't take 40 years, but even if it does, it has begun the new story of what God is doing in your life. Come and worship. Come and worship. Worship Christ, the newborn King. Amen.